All
Thank you
right.
very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir, Mr. Melchizedek. I also want to greet everybody listening to me. I want to believe you can all hear me, and that my video is also coming out clearly. Thank you once
Yes, we can
again.
hear you. We can hear you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you once again, everybody. I want to greet the director and the assistant director and everybody who has joined us from the various schools this morning. It's interesting that this kind of conversations are going on, and I was quite very excited to be a part of this the moment I was called upon to bring this little lecture on the use of technology in standardized education and how we can maximize technology in standardized education. So I also want to thank the keynote speakers for the great speeches. I already took my own notes, and it's interesting to hear how we are thinking and how things are going and the efforts that our leaders are making in the education field. We are excited because we are working together. Those of us who are the trainers and those who are the helms of affairs at the leadership level, we are very excited because very soon our education system will be transformed. We want to believe that all of these efforts will yield great effect. All right, can you permit me to share my screen very quickly, so that I can move very, very quickly with this? I do not know if you can now see my screen.
Yes, we can. We can see it.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, so I will be speaking about technology for standardized education and how we can maximize technology for effective teaching and learning. All right, this is what we are familiar with. We are familiar with the talk and chalk teaching, and I remember that the first keynote speaker, Mrs. Nanre, began to speak about this talk and chalk, where the teacher is the one standing in front. You can only speak only when you are being called upon. The chalk is all over. Students are busy writing. Nobody is really talking to one another. Every time students want to speak to themselves, the teacher says, hey, keep quiet. Until I tell you to speak, you cannot speak, which is quite different from what technology affords us. And she spoke about collaboration, which I will get to. But then 2020 came and COVID-19 came to change the game. And now students have to sit apart. Now nobody can speak. We need to use our face mask, and all of those kind of things came to change the game. Now the matter is that COVID-19 didn't cause the deficiencies and the problems that we find in the education sector. The COVID period only revealed our current state, only revealed the problems we had always had in the education sector. People say, COVID-19 has scattered everything. No, I don't really believe COVID-19 scattered it. I think we already had a problem. We already behind schedule. And for some of us who have been opportune to study, maybe online or study with technology at one point or the other in our education growth, you will know that in other countries of the world, things have been going on already. It's just that in Nigeria, we were quite slow. And COVID-19 threw every one of us off balance. I would have loved to hear us. How has COVID-19 affected the sector in Nigeria? If I give some few seconds, if you can type, and you would love to type for me in the chat just to engage us a bit and be sure that we are all listening. How do you think COVID-19 has affected the education sector in Nigeria? If you can put in the chat, if I see one or two, I will move ahead because my time is not plenty. I just wanted this to be a little bit interactive. Do you think COVID-19 has affected the educational sector in Nigeria? Just put it in the chat. Let me see what we think. In what way has COVID-19 affected the education sector in Nigeria? Anybody? I will just wait to see if one person will chat before I go ahead. COVID-19, how did that 1 year has revealed our weakness in the sector? Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Victor. It revealed the problems that we already had. It revealed the issues. Can I get maybe one more? And then I will just go ahead because of time. Yes, learning was suspended for several months. Yes, thank you. And I remember the second keynote speaker was speaking about the fact that it was difficult for several schools to transition. Even when the government said, go ahead and teach online, not many schools could go ahead and transition into that kind of learning. Thank you. So let me just go ahead because of time. So what are the technology practices in education which I will be speaking very shortly about? The reasons for teaching with technology. Of course, there are several reasons, and the keynote speeches have touched on them one part after the other. Somebody said it has come to wake us from our slumber. Yes, very, very, very true. The first thing that technology has done, teaching with technology, has removed every physical barriers, and it's amazing that we are all in different locations. If several of us are in the city of Abuja, I am here currently in Abeokuta, and we can all sit together in this kind of a discussion and teach. This is also a typical learning scenario where a teacher can be in any part of the world and still be teaching, and technology makes this possible. This wasn't possible in many spheres before the advent of technology. So it has removed all the physical barriers. Of course, it gives us access to wider online content. Technology has made it possible. People can go online and search. You don't have to wait for somebody to have it. Before, the teacher was the sage on the stage. He had all the knowledge. But now the teacher is simply a facilitator on the guide, helping the students to get the knowledge that is available everywhere. Of course, development of 21st century skills. I think the keynote speaker also spoke about the skills-based learning, which is very, very key in this time. The students we are teaching, they need to develop certain skills which in education we refer to as the hidden curriculum. It's different from they are learning geography, they are learning chemistry, they are learning mathematics, but there are these certain skills that will help them in the future, and technology makes this possible. Skills like collaboration, skills like communication, teamwork, presentation skills, conflict management skills. All of these skills are skills that are required in the real life, which technology makes very, very visible. Apart from all the wide range of technology skills, software development and all of those kind of technology skills are all possible with teaching with technology. Of course, the next one is that it increases student engagement and academic performance. Again, we must begin to think about how do we move from just that the teacher talking for long hours without asking for the input of the student and engaging the student, which will eventually increase the performance, the academic performance. Next is that it gives you the opportunity for immediate and personalized feedback. Gone were the days when teachers will speak, they will give an assignment and they have to wait for 1 week, 2 weeks before the student can get the feedback on their work. With technology, that feedback can be got immediately, and I will also be showing a few tools that make this possible when it comes to assessment with technology. It prepares students for the future. It increases teacher employability. Of course, like one of the keynote speakers, I really enjoyed her speech, Mrs. Nanre. She spoke about the fact that technology will not necessarily replace teachers. But like she said, I also believe that teachers who can teach with technology will replace teachers who cannot teach with technology. So anyone who can teach with technology in this time will definitely increase his employability, his or her employability as a teacher. And then finally here, we will attract new and old and keep old students. I remember approaching a school around me and said, let me train your teachers on how to teach with technology. And the woman looked at me and said, no, I'm not interested in all those your trainings. I just want more, I want more money, I want more students. And I had to say, yes, there's no way you can attract new students, more students, than introducing technology into your school. Of course, during the COVID, students migrated across schools because certain schools could transition to teach online, whereas there were these other schools who just couldn't move on, and certain parents needed to move their pupils from one school to the other. Now, what are the components of effective teaching with technology? And this is where I will be speaking in detail. We have content, we have pedagogy, we have the platform, which we must talk about, assessment methodologies with technology, and then finally the principles of teaching with technology. So I will run through these 5 very briefly. I won't go in depth, just to give us an overview of how we can teach effectively with technology. So I'll be dealing with each of these very quickly. So let me start from content. Now, we already said that the usual way is to teach with text. Teachers will write the notes on the board, they give notes to students, they give you opportunity to read your textbook and all of that. But we must move from that and move to images. I remember, I think it was Mr. No, when he was speaking and moderating after the keynote speech, where he spoke about the fact that a picture speaks 1,000 words. So the idea is that apart from giving just text, notes, textbooks to our students, we can also teach them with pictures, teach them with images, show them what you are trying to teach. And I have found practically, as apart from training that I do and consulting, I also teach just to keep grasp with what is happening in the classroom. And I see that even in my own subject, students tend to remember more, they tend to learn it more when they can see what you are speaking about. And then of course you can make use of audio, and then if you combine it together, you can use games. Now, if I speak a bit about games, though I won't go deeply into it, I know that the keynote speech also touched on games. There are 2 ways by which we can use games in education. Is either what we refer to as the game-based learning, or what we refer to as gamification. Now, game-based learning is making use of games itself, these common games that we have, and trusting that those games will teach certain skills, we teach certain mathematical skills and things like that. Definitely when it comes to game-based learning, there are quite a lot of games that are available. Minecraft is there, some math games. If you go to the Play Store or the Apple Store, you see quite a number of games. They are games, some of them adventure games, but they teach certain skills or certain subject content. Now, but the other way is what I refer to as gamification. And gamification simply means making use of game elements in our normal teaching. So there are certain things that make games interesting. Yes, I'm saying Kahoot. I'll come to that later on. Now, for example, what makes games interesting is the levels, the points. We are going from level 1 to level 2. I now have a badge, and I have this kind of thing. That's what makes it addictive. I have 3 lives. I've lost 1 life. Can I renew my life? Now, so I had to do some of these things in my own teaching. So rather than say we are going from topic 1 to topic 2, I say we are going from level 1 to level 2. So it makes the students feel like I'm playing a game. So rather than say you now have 5 points or 5 marks, I say you have 5 points. Those are the languages of games that makes games addictive and interesting to the students. So that's how we can use games in the classroom. I'm sorry I'm running very fast because the time I'm giving is quite very small, so I just need to touch on this and move as quickly as I can. And then definitely we can make use of videos. And videos, we can either look for short relevant videos available all over on YouTube, either on YouTube, Khan Academic Kids, YouTube Kids, Crash Course programs. Several of these developers or content creators are on YouTube that have made different videos on different subjects. I have used videos over and over in my own teaching experience. But then much more, which I would also prefer, is the teacher himself being trained to create his own videos, which feels a little more personal because the student is seeing his own teacher and is seeing the note behind him, something like what you can see right there on the screen. So that feels a little more personal to the student. He's hearing his teacher's voice, he's seeing his teacher's face, and then he can flow along. Short videos available. And then finally, the internet is quite available. I remember taking a course, and when we asked, typical of Nigerians, we say, what's the recommended text? The lecturer looked at us and smiled and said the entire internet is examinable. And it was quite interesting. He kept saying that even if an article is published tonight, it's examinable tomorrow in your exams, which made our reading wide, made our understanding also quite broad. Let me move away from content and go to pedagogy very quickly. Pedagogy has to do with the methodology of teaching. How do we teach? And technology without pedagogy is trouble for us in education. I think the few states that technology has been that have tried to implement technology, the reason why they have not succeeded is simply because they have put the cart before the horse. They have thrown technology into the classrooms and given everybody tablets without training the teachers, without training the students, without applying a right pedagogy. So the technology is there. They put smart boards in every classroom. They put TVs and projectors and flash all of these technologies. Even IT people have come to sell technology to us, and without us having a correct understanding of pedagogy. So let me quickly introduce us to a technology pedagogy. It's called the activated classroom teaching pedagogy, which is one pedagogy that I am working with currently, both in research and also in the classroom practically. And I will just run through it. I won't have time to speak about it. At the lower level, has about 6 levels. We talk about consumption. This is what we are used to, where students are consuming content. They sit down and they are consuming. So even if they are using the tablet, they are all the same still consuming. They are reading books on e-books on the tablet. They are watching videos on the YouTube. It's still consumption. But when we move from consumption, we give our students opportunity to curate the content. So rather than give them the notes, I ask them to form their notes while I am teaching. That gives me the opportunity to help the students to curate the content that they already know. And there are many of these curation technology tools. Listly is one of them, and several other tools that can be used for curation. But when we move above curation, we go to conversation. And the keynote speech also spoke about conversation, putting students in groups and making them collaborate together, making them hold conversations together. And we must know that learning takes place in conversation. The reason why this event organized by the Young African Innovators Hub is quite engaging for us is because conversations are going on. We are listening to this speaker, we are listening to that other person, those who have been in education for years and who have practiced many of these things. The conversation is going on. Our students also learn. That's why they are attracted to Facebook. It's because they are always talking and they are learning from their friends. That's why they go to all of these social media. We can use technology to bring this conversation to the classroom, which makes it quite interesting. Going forward is the pedagogy of correction. And correction has to do with the fact that things are in the better mode. And when I say better, I mean BETA. And better means it keeps improving. So content is not standard. We cannot say because that's how it has been 10 years ago, that's how it will always be. No. Content is changing. Things are changing. A lot of things are changing. Have even changed after COVID. And so we must continue to make our students relevant in that light, where they know that things keep changing. They cannot just rely on one or two textbooks. They must make themselves available, because those textbooks were maybe written a long time ago and things might have changed. And then as we go to the top, we talk about creation. She also spoke about creativity, bringing out creation into our students, making both the teachers and the students creative people, not just consuming content but creating content. Now we know that the more content we create, the better we become. The reason why that student, which the CEO Mr. Mekizede spoke about, is because he's creating something, and anybody who can create something must have perfectly understood the concepts behind what he's creating. So applying the creation pedagogy helps our students to learn better. And then finally, at the very top is what we refer to as chaos. This chaos is not the normal chaos we know, in the class where we say that we don't have classroom management skills. No, we are talking about making meanings out of seemingly scattered scenarios. So we are dealing with teaching our students how to find meaning from scenarios that are not they are not seemingly perfect. Let me move away from pedagogy and go to the right platforms that we can use for teaching with technology. And then these are divided into three modes. The first one is social media platforms, which we are familiar with: Facebook, Twitter, Telegram, WhatsApp. These are social media platforms. Teaching can go on there, and I know that for several schools during COVID, this was what they did. They simply transitioned to WhatsApp, created WhatsApp groups, poured their students into it, and began to teach. But of course, you know that the experience on WhatsApp cannot be a good experience. For example, how do you turn in an assignment on WhatsApp? How do you do a live lecture on Twitter, for example? Thank God for Telegram that keeps updating itself and has now put in the option for live video, and I think Telegram is even a little better than WhatsApp. So in case you are constrained, maybe because of location, maybe because of internet issues, I would recommend Telegram over WhatsApp. But going beyond social media platforms, we also have learning management systems, which are actually the ideal, and there are quite a lot of them and a lot of new ones springing up in Nigeria particularly. But let me just speak about some international recognized ones that would really be useful. Edmodo is one good one. Google Classroom is another one. Course networking, and then Moodle. I know that some tertiary institutions in Nigeria make use of Moodle, but at different levels, they all have similar functions, from classroom live lectures to turning in of assignments, presentation of things, and all of those kind of classroom teachings. So these LMS, as we call them, are platforms that simulate the face-to-face teaching experience and moves it online. In which case, your entire school can go on Edmodo or on Google Classroom, and then you can create little subgroups where you can put all the different teachers, all the different students, the different classes, and then learning can keep going on. You can assign teachers to classes, assign administrators to classes, and then learning can go on. Some of the schools that I facilitated during the COVID, we made use of Edmodo, and some other places Google Classroom, and it was quite an interesting experience because learning could take place. Even though the students were not coming to school, but teachers were creating videos, creating content, students were watching videos and submitting, and all of those kind of things. And then finally, we have the live lecture tools, and I'll talk of Zoom, Google Meet, and Microsoft Teams. These are the biggest. There are other ones like Adobe Connect, but there are several other live lecture tools. In my opinion, I think Zoom is still the best, and it's because of many controls that Zoom has. For example, we've been troubled so much by people having to mute and unmute themselves in this meeting that has troubled some of the previous sessions. In Zoom, that is taken care of automatically. I just set everybody to mute, and nobody can unmute themselves unless I unmute them. So I believe that for teaching, we should rather use Zoom rather than either Google Meet or Microsoft Teams. Now, I know that certain schools have bought into the Microsoft ecosystem. There are ways by which I could still link Zoom into all of these other systems. So even if you are using Google Classroom or you are using Microsoft Teams for the normal LMS, you can still make use of Zoom, which I think has many other things. Of course, another big advantage in Zoom is that you can record your lecture. So even if a student misses out from the live lecture, you can always go back to watch the video. Very quickly, let me move to number 4, which has to do with assessment. Assessment with technology, and I will just mention a few tools. Kahoot is one great tool that I use very regularly. It's a very, very great tool. If you go to kahoot.com, you will use Kahoot. Kahoot is like a game-based assessment tool that allows you to set different kinds of questions and gives you the opportunity to assess your student. The only thing is that the student must also have technology devices, just like the teacher has technology devices. Google Forms is also useful. I use Google Forms also for assessment sometimes, and they have also added some of these scenario branchings, such that if you get this right, it goes to this question. If you get this wrong, and then it can also give you opportunity to automatically score the work. Let me say, okay, I'll speak about that at the end of this. PlayPosit is a very interesting tool. PlayPosit is a video assessment tool. Now, normally, sometimes you ask your students to go and watch a video at home, and they go home, they come back the next day, half of them tell you they watched it, while else they didn't watch it. Some of them watched only 5 seconds and they told you that they watched it, meanwhile they didn't watch it actually. So PlayPosit is a video assessment tool where when you find the video you want them to watch on YouTube, you place it inside PlayPosit, and PlayPosit keeps track of their watching. So if they watch for 5 seconds, PlayPosit tells you this student watched only 5 seconds. If they watch for 2 minutes, it tells you how long each student stayed on the video. And then more importantly, you can add questions. So the video can play to 10 seconds and then pause, and then you ask a question, and then the student needs to respond before the video continues. So I love using PlayPosit from time to time with my students if that is available for me. And then finally is Plickers. I use Plickers over and over again, and the advantage of Plickers is that Plickers is an assessment tool that does not require the students to have technology. So only the teacher requires technology in the classroom. The student can respond using a card, just a normal card, which you can print by yourself, and then they can make use of it. So in low technology areas where students cannot afford technology, I recommend Plickers as an assessment tool. One advantage of all of these as technology assessment tools is that the students get immediate feedback. They don't have to wait 1 week before they know how they fared in that assessment. They can get the assessment immediately. And then finally, let me just run through all the principles that I have spoken about before. Use different content types. Make sure you make use of a good pedagogy. Pedagogy is what helps our students to learn properly. Use a good platform, plan your scenario, communicate and support teachers. At this point, this is where we need to talk about training. We need to pay attention to training our teachers and making sure that they can make use of this technology properly. Finally, one last activity for all of us, just to also chat together. What challenges do we face when we try to teach with technology? Let me allow us, this will just be the last part, to type in the chat. What challenges do we face when we are trying to teach with technology? I will once again wait a few seconds just to see if anybody would respond. Lack of technical know-how. Yes, thank you very much, sir. That's one big challenge that we are facing in this time. Am I getting maybe 1 or 2 more? Who wants to tell me what challenges do you face in your own environment when you try to teach with technology? Of course, one of the challenges we face this morning is the challenge of internet, which is a big challenge actually. Lack of technology tools and devices. Yes. What we call the tech divide. Some people have the devices, some do not. So let me move quickly because of time. The possible challenges that we can have, the biggest of them is internet. Yes, thank you. Lack of poor supply of constant light. Yes, light power issues are a big issue. So number 1 is internet. I don't need to speak much about internet. We know how internet can pose a challenge. We must not allow internet issues to debar us from teaching with technology. We must find alternatives. We must keep going. And thank God in Nigeria we have quite a number of these internet providers. If MTN is not going, go to Airtel. If Airtel does not go, get a local internet service provider in your town. Having all of this not discouraging us would really help us to move. Of course, teachers complain of time. How can you ask me to use all of these technology tools in 40 minutes? My period is just 40 minutes. But the thing is, I say to teachers that what you will use 20 minutes to explain and will take 20 minutes for your students to understand why you talk, if you get a relevant 3 minute video, you can be sure that what you take you 20 minutes, the students will get it in 5 minutes. All you need to do is just explain, further explain and recap what you have done. If you have those live tools, live things in the classroom that you can show them, they will definitely get it much more than spending all the time trying to explain with your mouth. Of course, the other challenge is adoption. I've heard complaints from certain teachers that say, no, my school owner is not interested. We want it the way it has always been. And with this lack of adoption or slow adoption will definitely cause an issue with trying to teach with technology. Support is another one. Teachers definitely need support. What happens when I'm teaching on Zoom and the network disappears? What happens when I'm teaching and everybody is unmuted and talking? How do I handle the class? What happens when something goes wrong? What happens when a student says, I have submitted the assignment and the teacher cannot see it? Teachers definitely need support. And I think that schools should begin to have educational technologies, should begin to have learning technologies, learning engineers, people who are familiar with both the educational aspect and this technology that can provide the kind of support that these teachers would need when they run into challenges. This has discouraged several teachers and several lecturers. Cost is another issue. Many people say that technology is expensive. For example, we have been on the internet now for over 2 hours, 2 straight hours, and because of this you discover that it's costly. It will cost you certain things, but what we get with our students will feedback or will help us to offload the cost that we have. And then finally is the technical know-how, which we must also help with our training. So let me just encourage us, that to be my final thought, is that technology is possible, technology would work, we can teach with technology and the tools are available. We only require that these things must be put in place. Yes, somebody is saying technology, facilities and knowledge, the lack of it. Yes, so all of these can help us if we pay particular attention to this. So just to say that these are the 5 different areas that we must take note of when we are trying to teach with technology. I hope that with these little words we have been able to understand how we can maximize technology in the classroom and for our education. Once again, thank you very much, sirs and ma'ams, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening, and God bless you. I wouldn't know if there will be any space for questions or we'll just go ahead. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Dan Adeboye. That was an awesome and elaborate explanation you gave to us, elaborate, detailed presentation you gave to us. And so I really want to use this opportunity as well to appreciate everybody once again. First, to our keynote speakers for the time, their patience, and everything. It's a great privilege, and we do not take it for granted. Thank you so much. I don't know if everybody can hear me.